Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, good cop, bad cop, accuse. We're talking LA Noire. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to a special Thanksgiving episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellis, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. We are talking about LA Noire in this episode. If you want to listen to our conversations on Skyrim and Doom, those are also available today, so check those out. But today, right now, we are talking about LA Noire, the Rockstar game that originally came out 7 or 8 years ago, and is now available on Switch and a bunch of other platforms as kind of a re-release. So this is one that I've been playing. Mark, I don't believe that you had any interest in picking it up. You said, LA Noire, forget you.
Yeah, I think that's a direct quote because my limited experience with the game was not positive.
What was your experience with the game? Had you
playing a friend's copy?
Playing a friend's copy.
Or like at a friend's house. So pretty casually, didn't sink like hours and hours and hours into it.
Yeah.
But
so it's a very strange game because it is two totally conflicting things at the exact same time. It is both a engrossing open world game and an extremely linear narrative experience at the exact same time. So the premise of LA Noire, as could be surmised by the title, is that you play a detective in post-war LA. Classic like noir setting, and you start as a police officer, and you kind of get one case to solve just as like a regular beat cop, and then you spend a lot of time as a detective solving other crimes, and the way the game works is that it has like these different modes or like these different little gameplay methods that like engage you in different parts of solving a case, right? So like first part is always like go to where the crime has occurred, and sometimes it's a murder, sometimes it's property damage, sometimes I've maybe done like 5 or 6 cases at this point, and the variety of case is great, and so his first thing is like drive to the location of this, and like then you're in 1940s, usually downtown LA, and it is eerie driving around and being like, oh, I'm on Flower Street, like I know this street, but it looks like it's 1940s-y, and I also have the weird like, I'm driving around in a video game. Mark, when you drive around in a video game, do you obey street lights, traffic signals?
No.
You just go? You just go for it? LA Noire will fine you for like running over stuff. Like it shows you the amount of like damage you did to the city and like to the car.
Well, I remember the driving controls not being that fun.
They're not. No, I mean it is sort of a chore, and if you hold the like get into the car button instead of just tapping it when you get to the car, your partner drives and he just drives to the next location. It's very because like there's this whole big like city of LA built into this thing, and like you can drive around it and you can not go to the destination if you don't want to, but like it's very clear that the only purpose it serves is like to get you to the next spot on the case.
It's like a super meticulously built high definition version of the Roger Rabbit NES game.
Kind of. I mean, if LA Noire, if you were playing Eddie Valiant and you went into Toontown,
I want that game so bad.
I would never stop playing that game. But yeah, so yeah, it is like a highly realized what do you say? Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
There's just no point. My memory, anyways, that there's no point to the driving other than to be like, here's this really faithful recreation of LA that we made.
Yeah, and I mean, you can answer calls from dispatch and like pick up little like side cases which is really just like run this person down or like help talk to this woman or whatever. But yeah, like it doesn't. The game, I would say the biggest failing of the game is that it doesn't do anything to encourage your exploration of what is obviously a big and cool, interesting space. And I think I feel more attached to it because we live in LA, and there are street names and shapes of buildings and tunnels and bridges and stuff that I'm like, oh, I can do this in real life right now if I want to. But so when you get to the actual cases, part of the game is looking for clues, like just around a crime scene, which is where the game gets real slow. And I actually think, generally speaking, the game is very slow and is less of a game and more of a like very interactive cinematic experience. Not like a Telltale game, but like it's got even more kind of like player involvement than that. So you look for clues, and as you're finding clues, your character, who is played by Aaron what's this actor's name? The guy who plays Ken Cosgrove on
Mad Men.
On Mad Men. Aaron Stanton is his name. He plays your lead character, and the facial animation in this game is great. Like they do like actual face capture for it. So the performances are all very like actor driven. It's not always the most fluid in terms of like body animation. I don't know if it's all like mocapped otherwise, or if it's just the faces that they're capturing. I do feel like some of the body motions are a little wooden and whatever. But it's a crazy feat of computer engineering that these characters all have such expressive faces,
especially from like the PS3 360 era.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from like 8 years ago. It's nuts. But so yeah, as you're collecting these clues, there's like a little the game is constantly like talking at you. Your character is talking, the other characters are talking to you. You have like a partner who like offers a little bit of advice. You're interviewing witnesses and stuff like that. And in the interviewing witnesses is where I think the game gets to its most unique. So you've been looking for evidence, and you can use a lot of this evidence against either witnesses or other persons of interest to try and get them to give you more information. So as you're interviewing these people, you have to try to determine whether you think they're lying or not in the stories they're telling you. And you have 3 different dialogue options. They're good cop, bad cop, and accuse, per our joke at the beginning of this episode. And accuse is like not always the most aggressive option. But anytime you accuse someone of something, you have to have the evidence. You have to have seen the evidence in order to like back up your accusation. So like if someone is being cagey about like what their relationship with their husband is like, and you want to hit that accuse button, you have to be like, oh well, I saw this framed picture of him with like a note written from another woman on the back of it, and so you can confront them with that information and then like get more information.
And is that the information you get from like the crime scenes? Yeah,
so those are like, you would find that note when you like explored that woman's house, or not. You can also miss these things. So and then like good cop, bad cop, it in a lot of ways ends up being kind of a crapshoot. Like if you don't have the evidence to accuse someone, you try not to. But the difference between like, is this person going to respond to me being good cop or bad cop? Like you kind of just got to read. There's like a real moment of like role playing in it where you're like, how do I feel about this person? And like what they're telling me, like, do I buy it? Do I want to like get rough with this person? Was he kind of a jerk to someone else? So like there's a fun amount of like actual role playing involved with that. And then beyond that, when you like finish up a conversation with a witness or a person of interest, it tells you how many questions you got right, or like how many of those like little interactions you got right. And there are right and wrong answers, right? So like when you finish, and then that's it. The game saves right then at the end of the conversation. It's like, well, that's how you did it. That's how you did this case. so it feels like it has consequences in a way that no other game that I've played in the last 10 years has consequences, you know? Games now are very like, oh, well, you know, if you die here, you can try it again. Or like if you mess up this chase sequence, you can try it again. But this is just like, well, no, you messed that up, and now it's going to be harder for you to solve this crime. And you can, I think, I have yet to like totally fail a case, um, but you always like get to it eventually. It just sometimes involves going to see more people or checking out more crime scenes or getting like a lower rating at the end. And at the end, like end of a case, when you finally have something closed, it tells you like, oh, if you would have pushed harder on this guy, he would have rolled over on, you know, his accomplice or whatever. Um, and so all of that's super cool. And like, I I'm having almost like a hard time saying that it's like a fun game.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, are you in, or I guess more like, are you enjoying playing it?
I am. I really am enjoying playing it. And I put in a bunch of time this morning. I was doing it a little bit more like, you know, stop and go before, but you know, I did like 3 cases back to back this morning, which you know takes, you know, each case is a little over an hour long, I guess. Um, and like got into a real groove where like it felt really good, and you know, like I said, the acting in this game is great. The writing's phenomenal.
Do you think part of the reason why they focus so much energy on the faces is because they're supposed to be like tells and stuff in the acting, or is that not really an aspect of it?
I mean, I think that is an aspect of it, but I don't necessarily know if there's like a one for one. Like I don't know if, you know, they're coaching someone being like, all right, you're lying in this one, so make sure your eyes are shifty, you know?
Right.
But it does like having the facial animations be so like transparent, and like all of the faces looking like they're actors. So like the actor who plays Paul Kinsey on Mad Men, his name is Michael Gladys. He was in one of the cases I played this morning, and just seeing that actor's face on this character like kind of endears you towards him in a way that, you know, like these all look like people and like actors that you've seen and stuff. Specifically if you've seen Mad Men. There's a lot of Mad Men actors in this. um but like I think it helps you invest in their stories on a more like human level, instead of being like, well, okay, does the machine want me to think that it's lying? You know what I mean? That it actually feels like a human. The game does stumble every time you have to like get into a firefight or like run someone down, and it doesn't happen a lot. Um, and in fact, one of the first times I pulled my gun on a suspect, I failed out of it because I shot him. Like I was just supposed to pull my gun on him and just kind of hold it there, and then he gives up. Um, but yeah, like that's along the same lines as the like as I'm driving around LA, I at first I'm like, it's a video game. I can, you know, zip around wherever, and like, oh no. I can obey traffic signs and like turn on my siren when I want to blow through an intersection.
So the box art for the release of this game and just kind of like the marketing materials for this re-release, are like so well done and really capture that feel of like Chinatown.
Yeah.
And does that carry into the game? Because my memory of it is that it doesn't really.
That you mean that it's like how do you mean?
Yeah, like that it had like it carries that feel of like a film noir like from that period.
Yeah, I mean it does. It's got also just a little bit of that like rock star flavor to it, where you can tell that it is interested in not just like presenting the genre tropes, but also like doing something with them. There's an ongoing story about a therapist who is treating people who've come back from the war with PTSD. I guess sort of discovering PTSD basically. So you pick up these, and your character is a veteran as well. You pick up newspapers as you're investigating stuff, and you just see like little clips from the psychiatrist's life. So like it is both just kind of exploring those like kind of pulpier episodic like crime stories and building up something bigger that's like approaching the whole ethos of 1940s LA, and the sort of like the kind of space between like law enforcement and criminals. So like I think it's like to ask if it's akin to Chinatown or like a classic like noir movie. I think it is working its way to that right now for me. Like I said, I'm only like 5 or 6 cases in.
I mean, even just like presentationally, like
Yeah.
like the music and like the way that
Yeah, absolutely. Like the music, it's that solo trumpet,
Yeah.
on like a scratchy record player, and every scene gets every case gets like a big splash screen that's like white letters in quotes, big blocky letters on a black screen. And then everything starts in black and white and then fades into color.
You're really selling me on really trying this game again.
I didn't expect to have a super fun time with it. And I mean, I think it did take a little bit to get to a point where I was actually having fun with it. But like, man, when it gets going and you can just sort of like let go of the idea that you're playing a game or like going to have any sort of, this is going to be the opposite of your experience with Doom, right? Which is just like gameplay. This is so much more experiential than that. And like the role playing aspect is really appealing to me. And I guess is a little bit different than the original release, where they started to like give you the beginning of like each of the responses. So like, I don't know, the good cop, bad cop options were like more defined. And here it's just kind of like, well, how do I want to approach this? Like, do I want to be a dick, or do I want to, good cop, bad cop, I guess.
On a like technical level, did you buy this game physically, or did you buy it online? Or through the eShop?
I bought it through the eShop. I recently purchased an SD card, a micro SD card, knowing that I was going to pick up this game, which I would have had to do even if I was buying it physically. And yeah, it took 4.5 hours to download it. So I started it going before I went to work, came home at lunch, and it said it was still going. And I was like, great. Great, just checking to make sure everything is squared away.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that, and it says it right on the box. It's like a warning level, like label, like if you're buying cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like it's very disruptive to the box art.
Right.
Where it's like if
you need extra space, and also this will give you lung cancer.
Yeah. But in a fun way.
You'll love it. Yeah, so that is definitely a consumer warning. You have to have extra memory. And it makes sense. Like, there's so much voice acting in this game that just takes up a lot of space. But on a technical level, I do notice some pop in of textures and backgrounds and stuff sometimes. And ultimately it is a game that was made 8 years ago that has been like polished and represented for a new generation. So it's not beyond the faces. None of the technical aspects of the game are going to blow you away.
Are you playing in handheld mode or docked or both?
I am playing both. Yeah. Yeah, and I again, like you, I'm not a total like I'm not totally into graphics, and I'm not I'm frequently playing games on my Switch. So I recognize that it doesn't look super great, but it looks well enough to get the job done. And again, it's an older game. And I think the fresh coat of paint that they put on it for this release totally brings it into a place where it doesn't look out of place on the system. And in handheld mode looks awesome. So. All right, Mark, that should close up our conversation on LA Noire for the Switch. All right. That's going to do it for this episode, this Thanksgiving episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you want to listen to us talk about Skyrim or Doom, we release episodes on those today. Check those out. Rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It helps us a bunch. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at NinCart Society and Nintendo Cartridge Society. Mark and I write about comic books on ReckonPunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can check out his music on his website or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thanks for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?